Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again. We are joined with Dr. Hardt. Dr. Hardt, thank you so much for being here.
It's always a pleasure, Doug. We have so much fun.
We do. There's no doubt about it. Dr. Hardt, we got another question from a viewer, and this one comes in, and the question is, how do I train my brain to remember?
Oh, well, that's a very good question. And there's a number of dimensions. One is nutritional biochemical. Another is attitudinal. And of course, another one is your brainwaves. When my book, The Art of Smart Thinking, was introduced, it went to number 3 on Amazon. And when it fell off, number 3, it remained number 1 in the memory improvement category for months. So obviously, one thing you can do if you want to get your brain to remember more and better is buy a copy, or you can actually get free copies of The Art of Smart Thinking online now at the Biocybernaut website, thanks to our diligent team. And so that's one thing that you can do. Now, Alpha is really good for creativity. You might recall that I did a study of Stanford Research Institute scientists and a control group where the Stanford Research Institute scientists did the Alpha training after taking the alternate uses creativity test, which they did before and after their training. A control group of Silicon Valley engineers were actually in the lab and had other parameters measured, muscle tension, electrical conductivity of skin, and so on. But they didn't get the Alpha feedback training. There was no change in the control group, whereas the creativity of the Stanford Research Institute scientists who did the Biocybernaut Alpha training, the increase was 50% on average. That is whopping. These people were already highly creative. Well, how does creativity work? Well, there are 2 types, and they're both very prized and relatively rare. The theta type of creativity is even rarer. So let's talk about the alpha type. It has 4 parts. The application phase, where you learn the data of the field that you're going to want to solve problems in. You find out what the good problems are. And then you pick 1 or 2. And the second stage is you incubate, you brew on it. And then if you have a burst of alpha, then you go into the eureka stage, the I found it. That's when Archimedes jumped naked out of the bathhouse in Athens and went running down the street naked, yelling, "Eureka, eureka," meaning I found it, because he'd solved the problem creatively of how to determine whether the king's new crown was pure gold or a mixture. And then the 4th stage is verification, where you go back to your study, your lab, your bench, and you test out the ideas. Now, what happens in alpha when you're incubating is your brain in alpha goes out into the vast storehouse of your memory, including all the memories that you don't consciously remember, but they're there, things that you were exposed to. And then your brain draws information, say, from column W and column P and column L, and assembles them in a novel way, and there's the solution. So actually, creativity requires that you remember. And so it's a hidden, necessary component of the alpha creativity, where you draw on information that you were previously exposed to, maybe consciously forgot, but it's there. And in alpha, you can go get it and bring it together. So memory actually is necessary for creativity. And so the way alpha facilitates memory leads to the increases in creativity. Now, I said there were a number of components. Distractibility and worry is a huge source of forgetfulness. Forgetfulness in and of itself is, I've added it to the list of 5 hindrances that come from the Zen ox herding stories, the distilled wisdom of over 1,000 years of Zen practice in Japan, that spiritual practice was inhibited or hindered by the 5 hindrances: doubt, drowsiness, distractibility and worry, aversion and any form of ill will, and boredom. And to that list, I added forgetfulness. Now, as soon as I began using the hindrances in the training, telling people about them, there was a massive improvement in people's ability to do the work, because they would recognize that these are the things that ego uses to block them from increasing their alpha. And so, but then it became apparent to me that ego was also using forgetfulness as a hindrance. Now, then I was in this quandary, like those Zen guys were so brilliant. They had 1,000 years of practice, or generations. How did they miss forgetfulness? And so this was from 2006 until 2008, buzzing in my brain. And then in December of 2008, having just moved the California Training Center to Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, I trained a man, Alan Paul Markin, who was one of the co-founders of Canada's second largest oil and gas company. And he brilliantly, when I asked the question that I'd asked in every training since I found the hindrances, how did the Zen guys miss forgetfulness? And he gave me a one-word answer, which was mercury, the silvery metal liquid at room temperature. Turns out that mercury impairs memory. I've actually seen a little movie shot through a microscope where you see a neuron of a giant squid growing in a cellular medium. The axon is extending. And then in comes a micropipette, injects some mercury, and the neuron actually begins to disassemble. Mercury disassembles brain cells, takes them blessedly apart. This is not something you want, and it doesn't help your memory. So, before the widespread burning of coal, which only goes back 200 years, there was no mercury contamination of the biosphere. So if you're wanting your memory to work better, be exceedingly diligent about getting rid of mercury. Now, this means you must absolutely ban tuna from your life, tuna, swordfish, and so on. Now, tuna happens to be my favorite fish, but I haven't had any in at least 20 years since I learned that tuna was it's at the top of the food chain. It does bioaccumulation. And so you must get the mercury out in order for your memory to work. Now, there are chelation processes that you can do where chelating agents are, infused into your bloodstream. And then chelate is a Greek word that comes from the word for claw. It claws onto mercury and other heavy metals, and then you excrete them in the urine. But you can also take, Junflo has a supplement called humecin, which functions as a chelator. And so you don't have to have, a blood vessel pierced with a needle to infuse the chelating agent. You can just take the humecin, and you need humic acid and fulvic acid in a 40-60 ratio, 40% humic acid, 60% fulvic acid. And you can take this and it will gradually bring the heavy metals out of your body. Now, you probably will need to do supplementation with minerals because it'll also take out the good minerals. But for your memory to work, you need to get the mercury out. And it also is very helpful to do some Biocybernaut Alpha trainings, because in the Alpha trainings, you increase blood flow to your brain and you allow your mind to go out into various areas to recover information, bring it back and to solve the problems that you face just getting through the day. So we have different mechanisms. Again, when the Art of Smart Thinking fell out of number 3 spot on Amazon, it remained number 1 in the memory improvement section. And so another factor which is important here is stress. It's been known that anxiety, since the late 1880s, early psychological experiments showed that anxiety impaired performance, physical performance, mental performance, learning is all impaired by anxiety. Well, turns out that alpha and anxiety are opposite. Alpha is like a silver bullet against anxiety. When alpha goes up, anxiety goes down. And we're talking about both types of anxiety, the state anxiety, which is transient usually of the moment, and trait anxiety, which is a long-term personality disposition. I published a paper in one of the top 2 science magazines in the world showing that alpha training would reduce both types of anxiety, state anxiety and trait anxiety. And so when you get rid of the anxiety, your memory works better. And so hopefully I've addressed a number of ways for you, Doug, and for your questioner, that they can improve their memory.
As always, Dr. Hardt, thank you so much for all that you do. And I'm sure you've answered their question as well as many others. Much appreciated for your time today.
Very fun to discuss such important topics with you.
Hi, I'm Tony Robbins. Listen, if you are looking to improve your brain, your psyche, your ability, your emotions, your ability to really maximize your performance, and you want to really dig into your brain, my dear friend, Dr. Jim Hardt, and his Biocybernaut program is extraordinary. I've been through it myself. My wife Sage has, members of my family have, and we found it to be truly extraordinary. But it is not for the faint at heart. Unless you're dead serious about really taking things to the next level, don't bother. We went through the Alpha program designed to maximize your ability to create alpha waves. And it was challenging and it was incredibly rewarding. And I'd recommend it to anybody serious about improving the quality of their lives or including the quality of their family lives as well. So check out Cybernaut, check out Dr. Jim Hardt. And if you do, I think you'll be really, really pleased. And the entire time you are learning to think and how you think these electrodes create sounds. And you learn how to put yourself in the zone of alpha. But it's a bitch. It's horrible. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody that wants easy experiences, but I'd recommend it to anybody that wants to grow immensely. And by the first day, I'm like, who do I got to shoot to get out of this thing? Oh, it's me. I'm the one that did this shit. Right? But by the end of the week, all 3 of us were able to go into this state of alpha. And if you're familiar with alpha, the best way I can describe alpha is there's no problem that can't be solved in alpha. Because every problem that we have was created by us.
Thank you for being here and absorbing this information about the science of brainwaves and about the stories of people whose lives have been beneficially altered, improved by doing brainwave training at Biocybernaut. And now I'm reaching out to you to invite you to come and be a part of the Biocybernaut adventure. Biocybernauts are to inner space what astronauts are to outer space. So come and adventure with us. And if you'd like to leave a comment on the videos, you can do that, or there's a link you can click if you'd like to learn more. We welcome you to Biocybernaut.